What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Locked On Pirates podcast. I am, of course, your host who does the most, Ethan Smith, and we are actually in a little bit of a rebrand. You see it still says Locked On right there, but this is now the Lockout Pirates podcast. We're not going to be getting into NDCBA talk for the remainder of this week. I just don't really want to talk about it personally. I'm not looking forward to everything like that. I just don't like seeing the game that I love covering being a lockout at the current moment, but with that said, today's episode is going to be really fun. We're going to get into the potential of a former Pittsburgh Pirate, as of last year, potentially making a reunion with the Pittsburgh Pirates here in the offseason if he gets the opportunity, as well as taking a look at what FanGraphs thinks the Pirates will be fielding on opening day in 2022 at the positions and as well in the rotation and the bullpen. So we're going to be getting into all of that today. And of course, thank you all for making me your first listen of the day every single day, even if it's in the afternoon. Maybe you catch this video tomorrow, maybe you catch it late tonight when you're sitting by the fireplace with a nice glass of whiskey or a nice glass of wine or some water or something, anything. Hopefully you're enjoying hearing my wonderful voice. I enjoy you guys listening to the podcast every single day, because if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have anybody to listen to or talk to. Make sure you follow this podcast on all of your podcast services like Apple Music, Spotify, Odyssey, etc. Make sure you follow there. If I was on your Spotify Wrapped, let me know how many minutes you listen to the Locked On Pirates podcast on Spotify, on Twitter at Locked On Pirates. You can also follow me on Twitter at MVP_Ethan. But with all that said, you know when the music hits, things get real. So let's get real and let's have a fun episode.
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And, of course, welcome back to the Locked On Pirates podcast. I am, of course, your host, Ethan Smith, who does the most. I hope you all are having a phenomenal Thursday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hopefully you're watching on YouTube, listening on Spotify, Odyssey, Apple, or Google Play. Hopefully you're all having a phenomenal Thursday and getting ready for a fun weekend of college football and pro football as well. It's going to be a very fun weekend in the sports world. But we are a Pittsburgh Pirates podcast. We will be covering some stuff that caught my eye today, and some stuff that I wanted to talk about here with the Pittsburgh Pirates heading into 2022. Of course, there's some bigger news going on in baseball right now outside of the Pittsburgh Pirates, but as mentioned before, I will not be covering it until next week, or even until I get some news on it, just because, of course, I am not in the rooms in Dallas. I have no idea what's going on. Nobody really does, and nobody knows how long this is going to last. Also, maybe we'll make the word lockout like Voldemort and Harry Potter and just not say it on this podcast. Do not say his name, you know? But as you see on the bottom of the screen, if you're on YouTube, if you're not on YouTube, get here, come and download these episodes, subscribe, like, do all that good stuff, comment. I love your comments. Love hearing all that stuff. Is a Richard Rodriguez reunion possible? Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. Of course, Richard Rodriguez was a phenomenal player for the Pirates last year for what I thought. He had some struggles in his earlier years as a Pittsburgh Pirate, but really was a very dominant closer for the Pirates last year. But of course, when you're not that great of a team, you don't really need a dominant closer. But they ended up getting one in David Bednar anyway. That's neither here nor there. But the Pirates, I do think, still need some help in the bullpen. We'll get into what the FanGraphs projection for the bullpen is currently. Doesn't look terrible, but it doesn't look great either. So the addition of Richard Rodriguez again to this bullpen would be very fun. I don't know if he would be the closer still. Maybe David Bednar would just keep that role, or they would split that role, and one would be the setup man and one would also be the closer. But is it possible? I mean, there's a real shot. He was non-tendered by the Atlanta Braves, of course, after just not really ever finding his footing in Atlanta like he did in Pittsburgh, and that was just very unfortunate for the Braves. Of course, he was traded to the Atlanta Braves at the trade deadline, who did end up winning the World Series, so they made the right decision on not tendering him, I guess, and not playing him too often, but you never know. Maybe Richard Rodriguez would have been a World Series hero if he was on the roster, but he was not. But they non-tendered him, so that makes him a free agent. Pirates, of course, picked up Bryce Wilson in that deal. Bryce Wilson had his moments for the Pittsburgh Pirates this year when it came to the starting rotation. I think he is definitely a lock to be in the rotation heading into 2022 on opening day. We'll see what FanGraphs has to think when we get into that later. But a Richard Rodriguez reunion, I think, would be very nice, especially for the right price. I think the price would be kind of the biggest deal. Of course, I think Richard Rodriguez as well could look to go to a contender also, as he already, of course, was in Pittsburgh and they traded him away. So maybe they do ask him about a reunion. Maybe they bring it up. It's one of those things that Ben Cherington could get into. Maybe he's into it. Also, Ben Cherington talking about a lot of the moves. He did say it was very hard to depart from Jacob Stallings and some of these players, but he knows that these decisions are the right decisions for the Pittsburgh Pirates and their future. And Richard Rodriguez, again, I think his market is definitely there. You could see teams like the Yankees or the Dodgers or even the Houston Astros or the Chicago White Sox, who realistically could use relief pitching in their quest for a World Series in 2022, assuming that we do get the full schedule and do get a schedule period. But I mean, if Richard Rodriguez, he's definitely going to have a market. But of course, when he already knows what Pittsburgh is, he already knows the city, he already knows a decent amount of the players. The only real difference would be he would be not pitching to Jacob Stallings anymore. He would be pitching to Michael and Roberto Perez, the Perez Bros, which they're not actually brothers. They just share the last name, but I'm going to start calling them the Perez Bros. But, I mean, a Richard Rodriguez reunion I think would be fun. We also look at his statistics over the way that he looked this year. And, I mean, with the Pirates, 2.82 ERA in 37 games, only appeared in 27 games for the Atlanta Braves with a 3.12 ERA. Had the same amount of losses over there as well, but it really is a closer. Losses are kind of a big deal. They're kind of not. Just really depends on how you look at it. But obviously, he definitely took a dip in production when he went to Atlanta, enough to where they saw that he didn't need to fit on the World Series roster that ended up winning the World Series. He wasn't even on the playoff roster, if I am not mistaken. I don't ever remember him pitching in the playoffs. I believe the only Pirates pitchers that were in the playoffs technically were Garrett Cole and Clay Holmes, I believe, actually, were the only two. Can't think of his name right now, guys, but the guy that we traded to the Red Sox, I think he was a minor league guy still, so I don't even think he was there either. But maybe he comes back to Pittsburgh again, and you see a noticeable production. Now, would it be a little interesting to follow here would be, does he come back, and then if he plays well, do you trade him again? That's kind of the thing I think that would be the biggest hurdle for the Pirates and Ben Cherington to follow through here if he does indeed leave or want to come back, just because he probably would want some reassurance. I think he's going to sign a one-year deal no matter where he goes. Most older relievers do. Richard Rodriguez, of course, already about to enter his age 32 season. So for a reliever, that's not astronomically old, but it's definitely up there. So I don't think he's going to get a multi-year deal from anyone. If he does, it'd be very interesting to see it. And if the Pirates offered him one as well, like a 2-year deal for Richard Rodriguez, I would honestly be for it, especially if I'm getting the same Richard Rodriguez that I had when I traded him away. I would definitely like that as well. But we'll see. I think a reunion is possible, unlike another reunion like Andrew McCutchen that I don't think is possible anymore. The Starling Marte reunion, of course, not even in the cards anymore as he is now a New York Met. But of course, Richard Rodriguez, we will be following that closely once news can be had about him and if he can come back to Pittsburgh, and we'll see what he decides to do. And before we get into the wonderful people over at FanGraphs today, I'm going to let you know about some awesome people who can make you some money, and that is BetOnline. BetOnline, of course, is your one-stop shop for all of your sports betting. BetOnline has you covered for all season for more props, odds, and lines than ever before as football season continues to march to the playoffs. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the sports action this season. Head to our new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Make sure you just use that promo code LOCKEDON in all caps to receive your bonus, meaning 1 unit in betting is $100, so they will give you half a unit, which is $50 of free money to go win on some sports betting like basketball, football, NHL, boxing, and UFC right to your favorite Vegas casino game. Say that 10 times fast. Don't wait to take advantage of all of the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline is where the game starts. So go make some money. Go have fun. As you see, as I mentioned yesterday, sent me a little pamphlet with the rest of the football schedule. As you see up there, you can go to the $100,000 NFL playoffs pick'em, only $30 to play, to possibly win a share of $100,000. So that could go win you some money. Maybe go do that. Of course, thank you all again for making me your first listen of the day every single day. If you can't notice today, I have a lot of energy today. I don't know what's going on. I have a lot of energy today, kind of skitty, having a little good time with everybody. And also some news for you as well. We will be 5 days a week until the middle of December, I believe the week before Christmas. So December 20th, actually the week of Christmas, I believe, is when we will stop the 5 days a week and go to 3 days a week. Just so you guys know, whenever we do move to that period, I am going to be doing 3 episodes a week, and of course following breaking news. Mondays with Gary, Fridays with Adam, and then Wednesdays I'm going to try to have a new guest every Wednesday. So, listener, if you want to be on the Locked On Pirates podcast during the offseason to talk about whatever we talk about when we get to that point, just shoot me a DM on Twitter at MVP_Ethan, or shoot me a DM on Twitter at Locked On Pirates. I want to have you guys on the podcast. We could even get multiple fans of the podcast here on the podcast if you guys would like. Super simple. All you need is a little setup, your mic. I got all that. Figure all that out. I just want to get that out of the way so you guys know that in a couple of weeks we will be to 3 days a week, and you have an opportunity to be on the Locked On Pirates podcast, as well as Wednesdays will mainly be mailbag episodes if we do not have guests. So you have a chance to get your name and all that good stuff on here, your questions, all that stuff, and never hesitate to ask me a question. But you also tuned in to hear about some stuff about the Pittsburgh Pirates, so we're going to get into that here in segment number 2. And what will the lineup look like in 2022 as it stands right now? Of course, depending on some outside factors, this lineup could change. We don't know what exactly is going to happen over the next couple of months. We don't know what moves the Pirates will be able to make once certain things happen and end. That will really be the biggest caveat to this. But if we do get to the point where moves really can't be made that much, and this lasts until about February, and pitchers and catchers are reporting, FanGraphs has our projections for the opening day roster and like the opening day lineup, as well as the opening day rotation and the bullpen. Say goodbye to my wonderful face for a second, as I'm going to cover you up right here. And as you see, that's what they think. So we're going to read down the list a little bit for you. Of course, we're going to start with the starting lineup, 1 through 8. Of course, this is assuming that the universal DH, which is not a thing as of yet, is not going to be put in place, even though I strongly believe it will be. It has Ke'Bryan Hayes leading off, which I do believe is very nice. I think he will be a phenomenal leadoff hitter for this Pittsburgh Pirates team for a very long time. He saw some noticeable production as a leadoff hitter, so I really like this. I think this is a lock. There's no third baseman in the system right now that's really going to really attack Ke'Bryan Hayes and his spot. I really would like to see him take the next step in 2022, though. I really want to see his bat take the next step. We already know he's there defensively. We already know he has that, but I really want to see him take the next step in 2022 with the bat. I want to see him in the 270s, the 280s. He batted 257 last year. You see 316, 373. Of course, I think a lot of that had to deal with the wrist injury. I think that was one of the biggest things that stopped Ke'Bryan Hayes from really taking a strong progressive leap in 2021. I fully expect him to take one in 2022, though, and become kind of the Robin to Brian Reynolds' Batman. They have Yoshi Tsutsugo in the number 2 spot. This one, I don't really care about the order too much. It's more of just like who's going to be on the starting roster. This one I definitely could see as well. Yoshi Tsutsugo, of course, signed a 1-year deal with Pittsburgh to stay a Pittsburgh Pirate. He said he loved it here. He said he didn't want to leave. Of course, that meant that Colin Moran was DFA'd. So there's, again, really no other first baseman that's going to really compete with Yoshi Tsutsugo. If I had to mention anybody that would probably go and be his backup, I would say Michael Chavis is probably a very good candidate to do that, or maybe they make a reunion with Colin Moran as well, which has already been expressed, but Ben Cherington does know that he has some interest elsewhere as well. Brian Reynolds in the 3-hole. He should be the 3-hole hitter for the remainder of his career as a Pittsburgh Pirate or wherever he's playing. He's just a phenomenal player. He should have received more MVP votes. I don't think he actually received any. He definitely, I thought, should have won the Gold Glove. He didn't win that either, but he was a finalist. He was a finalist for the Silver Slugger Award. He's just an all-around very good baseball player, and having him at number 3 is definitely the right idea. At number 4, they have Ben Gamel in right field. See, this is where things, remember, this is the opening day roster. So this, we already know, like Jack Sawinski, Canaan Smith-Njigba are guys that could jump up and make the leap. Travis Swaggerty, another guy as well that could jump up and make the leap heading into 2022 at some point. Now, on opening day, though, I think it would take a lot for one of those two to be the starting right fielder. I think Gamel will more than likely play left field still. As you see Anthony Alford right below him in left field. I do think Anthony Alford will still maintain a starting spot in the outfield for the time being, especially heading into 2022 as the roster is currently constructed. But Canaan Smith-Njigba, Travis Swaggerty, Jack Sawinski will definitely be knocking on the door behind him. Anthony Alford will have to have a phenomenal year, a phenomenal spring training to really cement himself there. As you also see Greg Allen down there in the projected bench. He was picked up from the New York Yankees via waivers. He's another guy that I could see that could potentially take over Anthony Alford's spot. So Anthony Alford, man, you're going to really have to ramp it up in 2022 and play some good baseball, a lot better baseball than 233. I think he's going to have to bat in the 250, 260 range and be very solid defensively to keep that spot. So that pretty much settles the outfield. Brian Reynolds, Gamel, Alford. That's what I expect it to be on opening day. I think that's what it will be unless they do add a really solid outfielder, which there's not too many left. I mean, if Andrew McCutchen came in, immediate right field option, but I don't think that'll happen. Here's where I'm going to start disagreeing with FanGraphs. They have O'Neal Cruz starting at shortstop and Cole Tucker starting at second. O'Neal Cruz, and this may be a little bit hot take, little hot takey. I do not think O'Neal Cruz is going to be starting the season at the MLB level in 2022. I think he will be in AAA Indianapolis for about a month or two, maybe 3, and then he'll come up. So if I had to say anything, I do think Kevin Newman will still be the starting shortstop heading into 2022. I think that's why they tendered him a contract in the first place. They know that he has a very good defensive acumen, but of course he needs to fix that 226 average. Maybe channel spring training Kevin Newman, who literally broke the spring training batting average record. But I'm not saying O'Neal Cruz doesn't have a chance to be on the opening day roster. I just don't see him being the starting shortstop on opening day, March 31st, 2022. I just don't see it. Cole Tucker, same kind of deal, but I mean, you also look at the amount of guys that are going to be fighting for spots on the roster in spring training in the middle infield. Cole Tucker, Hoy Park, Michael Chavis, Kevin Newman, Rodolfo Castro, Tucapita Marcano, Diego Castillo. That's 7 guys. That's a lot of guys. And that one is going to be a little bit more tough to cover, I think. That one's going to be a little more interesting. It's more, I can't really predict it right now just because I think it's going to be a decision that Derek Shelton is going to make as he sees things transpire in spring training. So that is where my biggest disagreement is I definitely think Kevin Newman will be the starting shortstop. There's definitely going to be a battle for it, though. He's not just going to be handed the position because he's a very good defensive player. I think he's definitely going to have to play his way into that starting role. And then, of course, the recent acquisition, Roberto Perez, catcher, of course, free agent picked up from the Cleveland Guardians. that was kind of a given. I think it will be a given. I don't think the Pirates are going to get another catcher that's going to be of his stature, and that's saying something considering he's not the greatest player on the planet anyway. But then we look to the bench. I already mentioned Kevin Newman, Michael Chavis, and Hoy Park. Again, most of the bench, I think Greg Allen is a lock to be on the bench as an outfielder unless Canaan Smith and Jigba or Swaggerty really impress in spring training. Michael Perez as well, I think, will win out that job for the backup catcher spot, even though I don't want it to happen. It will happen. So those three guys could definitely interchange. I think Kevin Newman will definitely be on the 26-man roster by the time opening day comes. Michael Chavis as well. Hoy Park is the one that you have to watch pretty closely. I think Rodolfo Castro, Tucupita Marcano, or Diego Castillo could really fit that mold as well. So this is what FanGraphs said. I agree with it for the most part. I want to hear your thoughts on it as well. This is for the starting lineup. Of course, some things could change. There could be an injury in spring training. There could be all kinds of other stuff that could happen. And realistically, I think it'll mostly be okay. I think the Pirates will do fine. They'll figure it out on their own. But we'll see. I mean, there's some locks on here, as I said. Ke'Bryan Hayes, Yoshi Tsutsugo, Brian Reynolds, Ben Gamel, Roberto Perez are all locks to start. Everybody else, have fun in spring training, as you see my face again. And we are going to take a quick break from our wonderful sponsors before getting into the starting rotation and bullpen. And with that said, welcome back, guys, to the Locked On Pirates podcast. And if you're on Twitter, I'm pulling it up immediately. This is the projected FanGraphs starting rotation and bullpen heading into 2022 as it is currently constructed on the Pittsburgh Pirates 40-man roster. This is going to be interesting, okay? So there's probably something that you YouTube viewers already see that is very concerning. Take a look at the starting rotation. What name is missing? Mitch Keller's name is missing, first of all. Again, you might be like, Ethan, how is that concerning? Mitch Keller's not that good. Why is that concerning? Well, he needs to be in the rotation to improve. Right now, this is what FanGraphs has. I literally screen grabbed this right before the podcast. I already looked at it last night as well to get an in-depth look at it so I could give you the most thorough analysis of it. Jose Quintana, locked to be in the starting rotation. Ben Cherington has already said the reason that they acquired him was to be a starting pitcher. JT Brubaker, lock for the rotation. JT Brubaker, of course, had a struggling second half of the year. He looked a lot better in the beginning. He looked like one of the best pitchers, if not the best pitcher in the rotation at the beginning of the year. Of course, I think his arm just got really tired. I really do. And he just couldn't do it anymore. Zach Thompson, who was just picked up in the Jacob Stallings trade, locked to be in the rotation. So the top three are locks. Bryce Wilson, locked to be in the rotation. So that's 4 locks. I definitely think the Pirates are going to do something again with a 6-man rotation. Now, why do I say that? Because there's a lot of mouths to feed right now in terms of young pitching in this system. Dylan Peters, I think, will be a bullpen arm. They have him listed as a starting pitcher here. He did start last year, but I can definitely see him being a long reliever in the bullpen. And you see, I'll actually take away this projected starting rotation thing so you can see at the very bottom that they have Will Crow in the bullpen. I can definitely see that being a possibility as well. And of course, you're probably wondering, where's Roansy Contreras? He will not start the season on the 26-man roster. I can tell you that right now. It's not going to happen. He will be on the 40-man. Of course, he already is. But I don't think he's going to start there immediately. I think they're going to let him get some time in Indianapolis, let him hone his craft, and bring him up around the trade deadline. So Mitch Keller is missing, but I would expect the starting rotation, if we're considering 5, I would just basically sub out Dylan Peters for Mitch Keller. So who does that also leave out? Miguel Yajure. Miguel Yajure, another guy that I am very fond of, that I really want to see take the next step in Pittsburgh. I think he needs to get some time as well. Just as a warning, heading into 2022, you're going to see a lot of movement with this roster, especially in pitching, to get some guys starting. You saw it last year with Max Kranick. You saw it with Chase DeYoung. You saw it with Miguel Yajure when he was healthy. You saw it at the end of the year with Roansy Contreras. You saw it with a lot of different guys. There was a lot of different guys that pitched for the Pirates last year as a starting pitcher, and that's going to be the way it is again. They have to find the guys that are going to solidify this starting rotation in this bullpen, and the only way you're going to do it is by giving everybody an equal opportunity. Now, am I saying that every player gets an equal opportunity to be a starter or a reliever? No. No. We saw how Chase DeYoung and Max Kranick got a lot of love, and Miguel Yajure, of course, was injured, but it happens all the time. Some guys are going to get more starts than others. Bryce Wilson and Zach Thompson are going to get more starts than Miguel Yajure and Chase DeYoung and Max Kranick. Don't think anybody's debating that. So the starting pitcher stuff, I definitely think this is going to be another spring training battle, but Jose Quintana, Brubaker, Thompson, and Wilson, I think will definitely be in the starting rotation. As far as who finishes it out, I definitely think Mitch Keller will be there as well. And then Miguel Yajure, Dylan Peters, those guys can probably fight that out for that sixth spot as a long reliever as well. Now, heading to the projected bullpen, you see some familiar names. Will Crowe, as I already mentioned, could be a phenomenal long reliever, I think. I think he has a real shot to do that. I think he could do very well at it also. David Bednar, you already knew that he was going to be the closer on this roster. I don't think there was really any debate that David Bednar heading into the 2022 season would not be the closer, unless they bring back Richard Rodriguez. But even if they do, I think that's a kind of split platoon kind of thing, or they just make David Bednar a setup man and Richard Rodriguez a closer, or the other way around. So David Bednar, of these guys, locked in. He will definitely be locked in to the bullpen for 2022. Chris Stratton, definitely, I think he will be locked as well. I would love to see Chris Stratton do very well. He did well last year. I actually thought the Pirates were going to trade him for how well he was actually pitching last year at some points in the season. They decided to hold on to him and get rid of Shashawn Shreve, who did not have the worst year either. Chris Stratton is a lock for the bullpen on opening day. I think he is a good long reliever. I think he gives you some upside there as well, and maybe gives you some trade value if he does very well in the bullpen in 2022. Anthony Banda, another guy who was waived by the New York Mets. He was picked up by the Pittsburgh Pirates. I also think he is a lock to be in the starting or bullpen in 2022. He offers a little bit of upside. He's a lefty. He's like one of two lefties here in this projected bullpen in 2022, the other being Sam Howard. Sam Howard, also a lock. Nick Mears, I think, is a lock. Sam Howard and Dwayne Underwood Jr., as I mentioned, locks. The only thing is Eric Hanhold, I don't know if he'll still be on the roster by this time. Of course, they picked him up via waivers from Baltimore, so he is on the 26-man and 40-man roster as of right now. We'll see what happens. Maybe you stick Miguel Yajure in that spot. Eric Hanhold, really the only guy here that I think is not a lock. Will Crowe, I think, maybe starts the season in AAA. It just really depends. And sorry for the pause, guys. But I want to see what you guys think about this as well. This is the projected starting rotation and bullpen for the Pittsburgh Pirates. And again, most of these are locked. I think they're locked. I'm not saying this is going to be who's starting in 2022 in terms of how spring training can go and how everything can go. But guys, hopefully you enjoyed today's episode. Hopefully you enjoyed all the content that I brought you today. Just thought it'd be fun to take a look ahead at the 2022 roster, maybe see how some things could shape out heading into 2022. With that said, make sure you go follow me on Twitter at MVP_Ethan. You can also follow me on Twitter at Locked On Pirates. I am on both all the time, so if you comment or have anything to say about the podcast, I will more than likely comment and have something to say with you, as well as make sure you follow this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Odyssey, Google Play, and, of course, YouTube to see my wonderful face every single day. Of course, we will be back tomorrow with Adam Bittner to cover everything going on in the world of the Pittsburgh Pirates. But until then, guys, make sure you go check out the Locked On Bets podcast with your boy Q and Lee Sterling. They have been on fire lately, so go win some money with them on betonline.ag. And guys, thank you so much. Have a phenomenal Thursday. I will see you tomorrow. And until then, guys, have fun.